Hello YouTube, and welcome to more 3 versus 3 Rome 2 Total War multiplayer action. Alright, you see here the general of my Roman army, and we have no mini-map, just like we did during the game, because it was in battle realism mode, and I did not realize that going in. In any case, so that was a bit of a surprise. In any case, I have 2 units of Triarii as my rear line, my defense against cavalry. My main line consists of these Eagle cohort and then 5 armored legionaries. And I have a leading element of 3 units of Balearic slingers. That is basically my infantry force. My cavalry is back here with my general. 2 units of auxiliary cavalry and a single unit of Socii Equites Extraordinari. Okay. To my right, I'm on the extreme left deployed in this woods, figuring that my swords would be good against any kind of fight that might happen there. To my right is the Bactrian army with a significant number of, basically it's all pikemen and Persian light archers going all the way down here. And he's also got some Bactrian Royal Cavalry out to either flank. And on the extreme right is another Roman army who's also invested heavily in armored legionaries. He has some levies, cheap skirmishers, and then I think all of his cavalry is deployed in the woods out to my left, uh, including his general and bodyguard and 2 extremely well-veteraned units of Praetorian cavalry. I'm not sure these guys are worth the points, but look at the stats on these guys. 68 melee attack, 87 morale. Yeah, these guys are nasty. I'm just not sure it was worth all the points put into them. What we can see of the enemy so far, we can see Egypt and Macedon out in front of us kind of set up in their own separate little defensive formations. Except that Egypt has 1 unit of elephants that he's thrown out in front. So let's just pop into real time and move. Now, you see this peeking up over here? That is a Carthaginian unit of war elephants. I did not see that right away, so we'll see what effect that will have on the battle going forward. Now, these African elephants, without any support, without anything to tie me down, charge right in and immediately are panicked after that first Balearic slinger volley. Now, unfortunately for me, they've got nowhere to go but into me, but they very quickly start taking casualties to slings, and I'm able to get my heavy spear units, these 2 units of Triarii out in front, to kind of tie these elephants up and keep them from charging directly into my vulnerable sword infantry. They do kind of get in here, but they don't get a great charge off. These Bactrian Royal Cav come in to help me out. So that pretty much these elephants aren't going to accomplish a whole hell of a lot. They're just going to get bogged down, they're killed, that's it, that's all for the elephants. That was literally it. Not too impressive for a unit as expensive as that. Now, it was right about now that my Roman ally, his cavalry, spotted this entire Carthaginian army coming through the woods here. And says, to the left, to the left, to the left, and I'm just kind of going, what? And then I turn and go, oh my god, here we go, look at all, okay. So this army's got a bunch of hoplites in it, backed up by Libyan infantry, and he's bearing right down on me. He's got a few skirmishers in the background that are coming in and out of focus, and there's that unit of elephants around here somewhere. Although in the game I had not seen these yet. Alright, so while that attack is moving in, I'm going to go into slow motion. See, I'm going to draw my... Unfortunately in this forest, it's a little bit hard to see what's going on. But I'm drawing my infantry into a line to the left to meet this flank attack. My cavalry over here, I'm going to pull the Triarii over in this direction to protect the flank against cavalry. Well, actually, they're going to set up right near the flank initially to help protect against elephants and things. And the slingers are going to come out in front to harry those guys. Meanwhile, Egypt is throwing these scythe chariots in kind of on their own, which is kind of an odd move, just like throwing the elephants in. They could have done a lot of damage if you waited till they're engaged. And these guys are charging right at the front of a Bactrian army with nothing but pikes in the main line, so I'm not sure that's really worth it. We've lost sight of Macedon, but he's moved out quite a large number of, well, not a huge number, but a companion cav and 2 citizen cav out on the flank. And considering we don't have any cavalry over here, except for these Bactrian Royal cav in reserve, that's something to be concerned about. But in any case, let's get a quick look at this charge of the chariots here before we get back to my battle. So yeah, you see already these guys are taking lots of arrow fire. They're heading right into the front of pikes. You can pretty much guess how this is going to end. Yeah, and the pikes look like they braced right at the end there, yep. So, they do get into the pikes. But look at that, they lost 6 of their guys right away. Not the most effective use of chariots. So, Egypt has already thrown away a unit of elephants and a unit of chariots. Meanwhile, Carthage, all he had to do was keep me from turning, and Carthage could have caught my flank in a pretty decisive way. But they deployed way too far back, so I was able to turn and fight this Carthaginian army one-on-one. And with his composition, the only thing that's really got me worried, the cavalry out on the flank if they get a flank on me, and these elephants. This is something that I have to watch out for, because they could really stomp all over my heavy infantry line. But nothing else in here. Those Libyan infantry aren't as good as my armored elephants. These late Libyan hoplites aren't that big of a threat to my heavy infantry. So I'm going to have to focus fire the Balearic slingers onto these war elephants and simply let my infantry fight it out with their infantry. However, if that Egyptian force had come up into my face and prevented me from turning, this might have been a very, very brutal flank attack. As it is, it's turned from a flank attack into a frontal assault. Now, my Balearic slingers aren't going to be as effective as they could be, but I do have them targeted on those elephants. This woods will give them some protection. Let's go back to real time. So here they are, just flinging stones with reckless abandon, hoping to panic these war elephants into stomping a whole bunch of their own troops. It's not really doing it, but I did take down one of them, and we're doing some good HP damage on these guys, so that's good. The spears I've moved all the way out to my extreme left to help against these Carthaginian cav, although my cavalry I think would outclass them anyway since I have just more guys. But I figured if these spears could fight the cavalry, then I could bring my cavalry either around the flank or in on a hammer and anvil attack. But I'm not going to withdraw from this army. I have to defend my Bactrian allies' flank, so I've committed all my heavy infantry just in a sort of general assault, counting on their superior stats to defeat these various infantry. Now, these war elephants did now panic from my Balearic slingers, so they're stomping on me, but they're also stomping on Carthage. So, not terrible for me. That'll actually kind of work out over time. Especially since they're more on his side than not. Plus, I'm still shooting at them while that's happening. So, these war elephants were not a decisive factor. You see, they're dying pretty quick now. So now the spears, I'm just continually pushing them forward over here to drive these 2 Carthaginian cavalry back. Meanwhile, I'm using that screening force as a way to get my melee infantry, or my melee cavalry rather, to smash into the flanks of these units fighting against my infantry. He does have more units of infantry than me, but you see now that they are starting to rout, as my superior troops have been beating them up pretty good. Now, the Carthaginian player also had these 2 mercenary Campanian cav who came over and were fortunately intercepted by my allies' Bactrian Royal cavalry. And his Carthaginian cavalry came all the way around his rear, and were also attempting to join that fight, and got caught up in this big battle with 3 of my armored legionary units, or maybe it's 2 armored legionnaires. Yep, 2 armored legionnaires in the Eagle cohort. So I'm bringing my cavalry in to try to help this out and get these guys out of here. And they do fortunately rout along with those Campanian cav. So that's basically it for Carthage. That was a very quick and brutal fight with him. You see, this that battle was probably only about 3 minutes long in terms of me and Carthage duking it out in the woods. And those Bactrian cavalry were, well, they were very helpful. Those Campanian cav getting into my melee infantry could have been a problem. So you see now this, this Egyptian player is clearly not the expert in this game. After wasting his elephants, after wasting his chariots, he's got all of these thorax swordsmen selected and he's just blobbing them around. And he's got enough units, he probably could have gotten and engaged these pikes, sent flanking groups around. He's just not even trying to do that. So this guy was clearly fairly new. And he's going to pay for it here, as these pikes are going to come in and pin him in place. And meanwhile, you see my entire army, all my cavalry, the other Roman cavalry coming in around behind them. They're really having nowhere to go at this point. Now, on the extreme right, the Roman army that is my ally is having trouble here. He's engaged this pike formation. Some pretty solid units, foot companions, looks like 3 of them all the way around. And he's not going to have a whole lot of luck against that. He's even gotten flanked by these shield bearers. So this Macedonian army is pretty small, but it's some very good units. And these armored legionaries aren't dying fast, but they're definitely not doing anything to these foot companions. The foot companions, probably all their casualties from the javelin charges on the way in. And meanwhile, these Macedonian cavalry have run around behind and done a pretty good number on the Roman skirmish units. They're not destroyed, but they're kind of scattered. Again, Bactria was able to send over a couple units, and he was a good center player for us in this game for sure. Sent the cavalry to help me out. He brought some cavalry over here to intercept these citizen cav, and he had these pikes over here to help protect the Roman skirmishers to some degree. That's what you have to do if you're the center player in a 3 versus 3. You really have to just keep an eye out, hold your position, and send troops as needed, send your auxiliary kind of troops as needed to support your allies. So you can see now, and in this giant cluster in the middle here, it's just kind of a big brawl. They're getting surrounded on every side. There's a whole bunch of armored legionaries coming from this direction. There's pikemen from the front. They've really got nowhere to go. My cavalry finally closed the gap on them, so they're just going to totally break and basically accomplish very little. So this one last unit is still trying to fight, but they're not going to last much longer. And now my cav's going to pull out and let the heavies finish this job. And already, before these guys have even routed away, the pikes are already moving over here to engage. Where Rome is finally disengaged from those pikes, realizing at mine and Bactria's urging that he could not win that fight. The cavalry has at least temporarily been driven off, and the remaining Praetorian cav are keeping an eye on those guys. So Bactria and Rome are going to kind of keep this Macedonian army from turning. And while they're doing that, I'm just running lots and lots of troops out here with the intent of getting around behind them. There are a couple units of the Egyptian cavalry back here. Citizen cav and a unit of Ptolemaic cav. These guys are probably routing from army losses or something like that because they have lower morale than the Ptolemaic cav. But these Ptolemies are not giving up just yet, so they're coming after my cav. And I didn't realize those citizen cavalry were routing, or I might have just charged right into this fight. So I was trying to disengage, bring my spears into the fight. But in any case, so that's going to become a cavalry duel over there, 3-on-1. And meanwhile, the Bactrian and Roman forces are just absolutely bum-rushing this one unit of foot companions. And they're good, but they're not going to be able to hold against that for very long. So just too many troops. So they've broken into this square. And there's not much that Macedon can do at this point. My cavalry's coming down on him. My infantry is beginning to attack his flank. This side is engaged by these Bactrian pikes, which would lose these foot companions except for all the other stuff that's going on. The shield bearers and the hoplites can't really hope to hold off all of this for long. I mean, the problem, I guess, that our opponents had that led them to this inevitable fate was they simply didn't coordinate their tactics terribly well. That Carthaginian flank attack, as I was saying before, could have been pretty devastating, except that there was nothing to prevent me from turning. So I was simply able to turn and completely destroy that Carthaginian army facing me with help from my ally, because there was nothing preventing him from sending reinforcements over. Plus, the Egyptian player threw some troops away, which helped. So yeah, I mean, and Macedon was playing fairly defensively. Carthage was trying to flank, and Egypt was running around in the middle, not coordinating with either one of them. So if you're playing on a 3 versus 3, even a 2 versus 2, anywhere, any ally kind of game, you really have got to talk to your allies if there's a specific strategy you want to do. I mean, my allies weren't talking a lot, but we were all sort of at least moving together. And Volstatum was doing a pretty darn good job of sending his auxiliary troops, his cavalry and such, to support us. You see, this Carthaginian army having run directly into me in a frontal assault did not accomplish a whole hell of a lot. His elephants did do some damage, but they also did a fair amount of damage, I'm sure, to his own troops, which isn't really recorded. His cavalry didn't accomplish much, and his infantry was struggling against my superior melee infantry. So, in any case, I had more kills than anybody else, and I had fewer losses than anybody else. And that's just because I had a good matchup against Carthage, and then I was able to come in and support those other armies against, for example, these Egyptians, where these thorax swords did very little damage. Look at the elephants, only 15 kills. These citizen cav routed, having done nothing. The scythe chariots only had 6. So Egypt really needed to work with his allies and coordinate some hammer and anvils with the elephants and the chariots and things. And it simply didn't happen. The Volstatum here was the back treat in the center. He did reasonably good. His cavalry was all over the place, helping out where it needed to. His skirmishers didn't accomplish all that much, and some of his pike units got pretty well wrecked. But the rest of them held the line, and he definitely did his job holding the center and supporting both me and Boromir's armies as required. And Boromir was a little too aggressive, attacking Macedon head to head, and spent a little bit too much probably on these Praetorian cavalry. But in any case, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, please do like the video, comment, and subscribe. Once again, this has been Southern Wolverine with 3 versus 3 Rome Total War action, and you all have a good day.